Hello and welcome to the section that we have of the website set up for our Canadian investors. What we'd like to help each of our Canadian investors understand is what it takes to invest in real estate in the United States. So we're using this as, I guess we're going to prepare this as a Q&A format. The question is, and we get this question very often from students, I'm a Canadian and I would like to start purchasing tax deeds in the US. What do I need to do? The answer to that is in a couple of different parts. First, you need to get registered with the Internal Revenue Service of the United States government. What we mean by that is in order to purchase real estate in the US, the United States government, the IRS, needs to be able to track any profits or returns that you earn for tax purposes. In order to be tracked for tax purposes, you have to have an identity with the IRS. And so the first step is creating an identity with the IRS. The second step is if you're purchasing real estate, you'll most likely need or you'll desire or want the protection that a business entity can offer you. So we're going to cover this in a couple of different parts. Now, first, we need to understand a few basic definitions. To get registered with the IRS or to obtain an identity with the IRS, what you need is what we call a taxpayer identification number, or a TIN, T-I-N. Taxpayer identification numbers are what the IRS uses to identify different individuals. Even a social security number for U.S. citizens is a type of taxpayer identification number. But for people that are not U.S. citizens, there are other types of taxpayer identification numbers. The only people that would receive Social Security numbers are individuals that can qualify that are U.S. citizens. Those that are not can qualify or get other types of taxpayer identification. Now, there are two that we would focus on primarily for foreign investors, such as Canadians. The first one is an employer identification number, or an EIN. The second is an individual taxpayer identification number. Okay, or an ITIN. Now, either an ITIN or an EIN can be used to purchase real estate in the U.S. Typically, an ITIN is used by individuals, whereas an employer identification number, an EIN, is usually used by business entities. Now, in order to get an EIN, you have to have an ITIN. Okay, so in other words, the individual taxpayer ID number is a prerequisite for the EIN, meaning that the first step in the process here is to obtain an ITIN, or an individual taxpayer ID number. So let's cover some basic steps on what you can do to obtain a taxpayer ID number. Step number one is to get a US-based address. Now, there are a couple of different ways that you can do this. There are mail forwarding services, or there are also what are called resident agents that you can oftentimes get in contact with or work with through some of the law firms that help to set up business entities, things like that for individuals. But a mail forwarding service or resident agent, they both provide very similar service, and that is that they will provide you with a US-based address. They can also forward any mail to you that you receive. So any mail that is received and sent to your US-based address can be forwarded over to you. In fact, in some cases, they can open it, scan it, and even email it over to you. They can also provide you with a US-based telephone number or a fax number and receive fax for you, or they can direct telephone calls to your foreign phone. Now, step number two is to contact a county to obtain an ITIN request. The IRS requires applicants that are looking to obtain an ITIN to include a request form that essentially explains why the applicant needs an ITIN. So we have a link you can click here on this web page where you can download a sample of what that letter might look like. Counties can provide these letters for you. The letter essentially states that you are a Canadian investor and that you have expressed a desire to purchase tax deeds in their county, and that it's for that purpose that you are requesting an ITIN. The counties can create this form for you. Counties, I guess, when it comes down to it, there are some counties that are easy to work with, some that aren't. You will want to find a county that's willing to do this. If they give you any objection, then it's probably easiest just to move on to a different county and to ask them, because some counties are very easy. They're easy to do this with, and some counties, for some reason, don't want to do the extra work. So it's just a matter of finding a county that's willing to do this with you, and that will create this form for you. It needs to be on county letterhead. So in other words, it needs to be on a letterhead that shows that it's from the county government. And from there, that request can be sent in to the IRS, and the sample letter should give you a pretty good idea of exactly what it is that the IRS is looking for. Now, the third step, once you have done these things, is to fill out and submit a W-7 form to the IRS. Now, the W-7 form is an application for an ITIN. The form itself you can download either here on this web page, or there are lots of other places where you can download the form. There are a number of different things you'll need when you fill it out, and you can see the instructions there, as you read through it. But just knowing ahead of time, a few of the things you're going to need will be your U.S. mailing address, your foreign mailing address, your birth information, and eventually you'll need a notarized or certified copy of your passport. And all of these things need to be done in a specific order, and there are things that you need to be careful about the details with. Once you're able to get this information sent out, you're usually looking at a time period of at least 6 weeks, I think, where the IRS can review that and can get you the ITIN. Now, there shouldn't be any issue with getting that from the IRS, as long as you've covered all of your bases, as long as you've just basically met all of the requirements that they have. So there's no limitation on the ITINs that they'll give out. There's just simply a matter of getting the forms filled out, getting everything sent in properly. But keep in mind that this is something that can take a few months. So you're going to want to do this sooner than later if you'd like to start investing in tax deeds. Once you obtain that ITIN, you are okay to start investing in tax deeds. The next question that would follow up after that would be regarding your business entities.